Oh, Father dear, and I often hear you speak of Erin's Isle. Her lofty seas
A major ongoing issue in the United Kingdom, Brexit reflects a Euroscepticism, or opposition to the European Union. Before diving into how Brexit could result in a united Ireland, or cause a resurgence of violent conflict, it's necessary to define Brexit and establish how it relates to Northern Ireland.
to me tell. My son, I loved my native land.
Brexit is the popular term for the prospective withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union. Brexit relates to Ireland because the border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland was one of three main issues brought up during the Brexit negotiations in April of 2017. Nearly 30,000 people cross this border every day, and creating a hard border would expose Northern Ireland's vulnerability to the raising of tariffs because 25% of their goods are exported south of their border.
The bleak November day, when the bailiff and the landlord
The UK needs a border because their government has taken the position that Brexit entails leaving the customs union and single market as well as the European Union. This means that Northern Ireland will have different trade regulations than the Republic of Ireland, and the United Kingdom's desire to control migration would also require a border. The United Kingdom also has to honor its obligation to implement World Trade Organization rules, which includes the creation of a customs border. The United Kingdom can't put up a border because for many people in both parts of Ireland, it would bring back memories of the Troubles. This would damage trade. The border would also disrupt basic travel, with thousands of people being checked when passing through on a daily basis. Policing the border would also be an expense, requiring the cooperation of both sides to maintain. At the European Union Summit in mid-December, leaders will have to decide if sufficient progress has been made on these issues to move on to the next phase of discussions. Ireland essentially has the final say on whether the process will move forward. The United Kingdom is proposing a seamless and frictionless border. Its proposals were rejected by both the Irish government and the European Union because they lacked a solution to avoid a hard border. The Democratic Unionist Party seems to be quite split on Brexit. Some members of the party are very stubborn about the prospects for the United Kingdom as a result of Brexit, while others are more concerned about the potential for political and economic fallout. The Democratic Unionist Party is opposed to anything that gives Northern Ireland special status. Some Unionists feel that the special status that would separate Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom is associated with Sinn Féin. Ireland wants to avoid a hard border and is seeking concrete details on how to achieve this. Ireland also wants the United Kingdom to remain in the single market and customs union, but the United Kingdom government has ruled that out. Its main concerns now are about the impact that the potential border would have on the Northern Ireland peace process, cross-border operation, daily border crossings, and trade. Ireland has always been the most economically exposed to the impact of Brexit, and at this point, the European Union's position closely aligns with Ireland's.
Because the north of Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, the north has also been part of the European Union like the rest of England and the British Isles. Northern Ireland has benefited greatly from the billions of euros in funding donated by the EU. However, with the decision of Prime Minister Theresa May to move forward with Brexit, that relationship and millions of euros of continued funding could be jeopardized. Let's look at the details of the EU's relationship with Northern Ireland since the Good Friday Agreement. In 2007, President Barroso of the EU traveled to Ireland to meet with First Minister and Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland following the Good Friday Agreement. The two men that had been elected to those positions were Reverend Ian Paisley from the DUP and Martin McGuinness from Sinn Féin. Both men agreed to work with Barroso's idea, the Northern Ireland Task Force, to help promote economic prosperity and peace building within the communities of the North. Barroso stated that the region bears the imprint of a period of conflict, a high dependence on the public sector, an inclination against risk-taking, a low level of entrepreneurship with low investment in research and innovation, a persistent negative image of the region to international investors, although this is clearly now changing, and a high proportion of the population seemingly detached from the world of work. Barroso felt this way and put his plans into action to create the Northern Ireland Task Force and document its practice over the years to come through different yearly reports. His words echoed the fears that many within the European Union had at the time of the Good Friday Agreement and were prepared to counterattack with funding and programs to advance the North. The goal of the Northern Ireland Task Force was to increase prosperity in Northern Ireland and all aspects of the government and community. Areas of special interest included agriculture, climate action, competition policy, communications networks and communications technologies, education and culture, and many more, ranging from energy and enterprise to fisheries and taxation. Millions of euros were given to the North to increase economic growth and help stabilize the country. Through the Northern Ireland Task Force and general funding, the EU donated billions of euros to Northern Ireland since 2007 and the Good Friday Agreement. This is the breakdown for the euros given to the North from 2007 to 2013. It is shown here that the organizations that received the most funding were the Common Agricultural Policy, the European Sustainable Competitiveness Program, and Peace 3. The Common Agricultural Policy was created to help sustain the farming business and enable farmers to make environmentally conscious decisions. The European Sustainable Competitiveness Program was to assist in continued job growth and stimulation of the economy in the North. And finally, Peace 3 was the third installment of the EU's General Peace Plan for Northern Ireland, with the goal to reinforce progress towards reconciliation in a peaceful and stable society by promoting economic development and employment, promoting urban and rural regeneration, and developing cross-border cooperation and extending social inclusion. After 2013, a new budget for Northern Ireland was proposed by the EU that was set to span from 2013 to 2020. For this period of time, the majority of the finances were distributed among the Common Agricultural Policy again, Investment for Growth and Jobs, and Peace 4. The fourth installment of the peace program. All of these programs reflect that the goal of the EU and the Northern Ireland Task Force was and is to increase prosperity in the North by securing the farming sector, creating and sustaining jobs, as well as trying to find some semblance of peace between the contested groups in the region. By funding job growth in the farming industry, the EU hopes to promote peace and sustain that peace through the different groups in the Northern Ireland. Besides financial support, one of the most important EU contributions to the situation in Northern Ireland post-Good Friday Agreement was their effort to create a lasting peace in the North through installments of the Peace Plan. Under Peace 3, there were plans to create the Peace Building and Conflict Resolution Center, PBCRC. The Peace Building and Conflict Resolution Center was designed to allow for international exchange, education and research, exhibition space and archive space, and shared facilities and space for organizations working in community relations and peace building. The plan for this center unfortunately fell through for Peace 3 and the Northern Ireland Task Force goals for 2007 to 2013. However, it was not excluded for Peace 4 in the 2013 to 2020 plan. As time goes on, hopefully, this program will be developed. After all of the assistance that the EU has given to Northern Ireland, it can be seen that a majority of people in the North voted to stay in the European Union. 56% of the Northern Ireland population was against Brexit, meaning 56% of the population wished to stay in the EU. As decisions come in the following days and the complexity of this issue is sorted out between the EU and Prime Minister Theresa May, the residents of the North will wait and see whether funding from the EU will continue or will terminate.
So, given the current situation regarding Brexit, as well as Northern Ireland's relationship with the European Union, there has been a lot of discussion surrounding the possibility of reunification between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. I will be exploring this potential outcome and looking more into the complications and conflicting opinions behind it. To start, the ongoing Brexit negotiations that have occurred over the last few weeks have resulted in some pretty serious implications regarding the status of Ireland. One of the key things to keep in mind here is that Northern Ireland is allowed to reunify with the Irish Republic if there is a majority vote to do so. This fact has become a crucial talking point as of late, mainly due to the fact that Northern Ireland has benefited greatly from its membership in the EU, and a majority of the North voted to stay in the EU during the Brexit voting process, as Kelsey previously mentioned. Alongside this, the EU has not allowed Brexit negotiations to continue without resolving what will be done with Northern Ireland. While this may not sound like too difficult of an issue to resolve, there is the further issue of avoiding a hard border between the North and the rest of Ireland. This is crucial in that the lack of a hard border had a major role in the settlement of the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, so any solution that creates a hard border may potentially result in a return to conflict, which Thomas will discuss in greater detail later in this presentation. With all of these factors combined, one potential solution that has been proposed is the creation of a united Ireland, which avoids a hard border and allows Northern Ireland to remain in the EU. While this solution may work, there are conflicting opinions between the political parties in the North on whether this is a good idea. While there are many different perspectives, I will be focusing on the perspectives of two major parties, the Democratic Unionist Party, or DUP, and Sinn Féin. On the side of the DUP, you have Arlene Foster, who's the leader of the overall party, and Arlene Foster has stated that she does not wish to move the border to the Irish Sea, meaning reunify with the Republic of Ireland, and isolate Northern Ireland from its biggest market, meaning the UK. Foster argues that although trade with the Republic of Ireland is important, they trade so much more with the United Kingdom, so reunification would essentially put this in jeopardy. In addition, she communicates the desire for a sensible Brexit, which mainly entails the continuation of the common travel area, support of a new border policy that is strong but practical, and a comprehensive trade and customs agreement between the United Kingdom and the European Union. So, essentially, she's tackling the issue from a mainly economic standpoint and wishes for Northern Ireland to have a similar level of involvement with the EU that it had while it was still a member, while not having a formal common market and not being a formal part of the EU. On the other hand, you have David Culhane, who is the Brexit spokesperson of Sinn Féin, and David has stated that he believes the easiest and safest solution would be for Northern Ireland to reunify with the Republic of Ireland. He argues that a hard border must be avoided at all costs, and that the best way to achieve this is for Northern Ireland to simply remain in the EU. He further argues that the easiest way for this to actually happen, and the way he would like to see this come to fruition, would be reunification. Although there would likely be many people in Northern Ireland who would be rather upset about leaving the UK, he argues that the most important thing is for Northern Ireland to stay in the EU, as opposed to creating a special agreement between the EU and Northern Ireland. So overall, at a basic level, both of these parties would like to avoid a hard border at all costs, but they just have different ways in which they would like to achieve this, with the DUP wanting some sort of special arrangement, and Sinn Féin wanting reunification. Lastly, just to quickly mention what actions Theresa May and the British government have been taking, there's been a lot of pressure for May to reach a consensus on what should be done in regard to Northern Ireland. The EU has tasked the British government with settling 3 key issues for the first round of Brexit talks, which have been occurring for a while now, which relate to citizens' rights, financial commitments to the EU, and the Irish border. Now, the first 2 issues have been resolved, but the last one has yet to be solved. May and the British government were tasked with reaching a decision by December 4th, and they still have not been able to reach an agreement on what should be done. And even with the European Council summit on December 14th that was supposed to decide whether or not the second round of talks could be reached for Brexit, the British government has not yet come to a decision. So this just shows how complicated this Irish border situation truly is. And there's definitely a lot of pressure on the British government right now. So that's another part of the reason why taking a more simple solution like reunification into account wouldn't be such a bad idea. And that's part of why this is actually possible right now.
What follows is a brief history of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, detailing some of the most violent moments and some of the efforts towards peace. The Troubles refers to a violent 30-year conflict framed by a civil rights march in Londonderry on October 5, 1968, and the Good Friday Agreement on April 10, 1998. The heart of this conflict was the constitutional status of Northern Ireland. It was a territorial conflict, not a religious one. The Unionists and Protestants wished to remain a part of the United Kingdom, while the Nationalists, Republicans, and Catholics wished to separate from the United Kingdom. From 1968 to 1998, the methods for pursuing these futures evolved from violent to democratic and peaceful. One of the Troubles' most notorious events, Bloody Sunday, occurred in Derry in 1972. On January 30th, 26 civil rights protesters were shot by members of the 1st Battalion of the British Parachute Regiment. Most of the circumstances are disputed, and thus it is unclear exactly what happened and why. During the march, there was low-level rioting, and 2 civilians were shot and wounded by soldiers. No soldiers were reported injured, despite the Army's claims that they had been responding to the threat of gunmen and nail bombs. Numerous journalists were present, and the events were widely reported, causing horror and fury around the world, but especially in both parts of Ireland. Bloody Sunday had a massive and negative impact on the Northern Irish conflict. Support for the IRA rose, and hatred for the Army became widespread amongst the Catholic community. Another one of the more violent aspects of the Troubles would be the shoot-to-kill policy. Republicans alleged that security forces operated a shoot-to-kill policy rather than arresting IRA suspects. The security forces denied this and pointed out that in incidents such as the killing of 8 IRA men at Logal in 1997, the IRA members who were killed were heavily armed. Others argued that incidents such as the shooting of 3 unarmed IRA members in Gibraltar by the Special Air Service confirmed these suspicions. During the Troubles, there were also attacks on border checkpoints between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. The attack on Derryard's checkpoint occurred on December 13, 1989. The Provisional Irish Republican Army attacked a British Army permanent vehicle checkpoint complex near the Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland border at Derryard. The IRA unit fired from the back of an armored truck and attacked the small base with heavy machine guns, grenades, rockets, and a flamethrower. A nearby army patrol arrived at the scene and a fierce firefight erupted. The IRA withdrew after leaving a van bomb inside the complex that did not fully detonate. The attack left 2 soldiers dead and 2 wounded. There was outrage in Westminster and among Unionists. The attack on Cloggage checkpoint occurred on May 1, 1992. It was an unconventional bomb attack carried out by the Provisional Irish Republican Army against a British Army permanent vehicle checkpoint. The IRA's South Armagh Brigade fitted a van with wheels that allowed it to move along a railway line. A large bomb was placed inside the van, which was then driven along the railway line to the target. The explosion killed 1 British soldier and injured 23 others. The compound just north of the village of Cloggage in County Armagh was wrecked, and the checkpoint was never reopened. The peace process had been brewing in Northern Ireland for a long time, but cross-party talks began in earnest in 1996. A combination of political realism and war wariness cleared the path to negotiation. The President of the United States, Bill Clinton, took an active role, appointing veteran U.S. Senator George Mitchell as chair of the process that would conclude the Good Friday Agreement. It was hard for loyalists and unionists to negotiate with Sinn Féin. The Ulster Unionist Party, for example, only agreed to participate in peace talks if those they regarded as terrorists were exclusively committed to peaceful and democratic means. Although the Democratic Unionist Party, led by Ian Paisley, refused to take any part in the process, the Good Friday Agreement marked a sizable change in Northern Ireland's political landscape. The Ulster Unionist Party and Social Democratic and Labour Party both agreed to accept power sharing, even with the former paramilitaries that had now committed to the peace process. All signatories to the agreement also believed in the consent principle, which entailed that any change to Northern Ireland's constitutional status would happen only if popular majorities voted in favor in separate referendums held simultaneously on both sides of the border. Removing the hard border between the United Kingdom and Ireland was also part of the agreement, and any return of the border controls resulting from a failure in Brexit negotiations would be a breach of that agreement.
The Good Friday Agreement, established in 1998, implied the development and maintenance of an open border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. This free flow of goods and people across the border has enabled peace for 20 years. In addition, the establishment of civic forums and the installment of a North-South Ministerial Council have assisted Northern Ireland through the peace process. Contrary to the establishment of peace in Northern Ireland, several dissident organizations continue to pursue violent behavior. Fringe groups believe armed struggle will motivate political and social change. Several of these groups include the Ulster Volunteer Force, the Real Irish Republican Army, and the Continuity Irish Republican Army. The existence and activity of these groups has caused worry in Northern Ireland, and some believe the removal of an open border could inflame old tensions and destabilize the peace process. This begs a worrisome question. Given the cathartic and emotional past of the Troubles, could the establishment of a hard border lead to a resurgence of violent conflict? The UVF, or Ulster Volunteer Force, is an organization that is still capable of carrying out murders. During the Troubles, the UVF was responsible for more than 500 murders. While the frequency of UVF activity has fallen after the Good Friday Agreement, violent incidents still surface. In 2012, the UVF organized the murder of Bobby Moffat, who was perceived to have flouted UVF authority. The UVF is heavily involved in the drug trade, distributing stimulants throughout communities in Northern Ireland. In recent years, the UVF was blamed for popularizing a drug called Green Rolex, which has been connected to multiple overdose cases throughout the north. The UVF also has strong ties to the communities it inhabits. To gain a sense of the UVF's presence in Northern Ireland, look no further than PUP politician Winston Irvine. Irvine serves as a member of several community organizations within East Belfast. He was appointed to North Belfast Policing Partnership. While an important figure in the Loyalist community, he is also reported to be the leader of the UVF B Company of East Belfast. Irvine, alongside other senior members of the UVF, attends many public parades and marches that showcase unionist strength. The UVF is not the same organization it was during the Troubles. It mainly acts to terrorize the inhabitants of East Belfast, where it is mostly concentrated. It maintains power in Northern Ireland via intimidation. Besides the antagonistic role the UVF plays, the membership of its East Belfast wing is growing. The chances of the UVF upscaling violent actions in response to a hard border are low. However, the installment of a hard border could help resurrect old feelings of hatred present during the Troubles. This loyalist organization has the capability of reacting to any inflammatory radical Republican actions. First on the nationalist Republican side is a fringe group called the Real Irish Republican Army. The Real IRA, which often claims to be the true IRA, is committed to using violence to achieve a united Ireland. It is considered a terrorist organization in both the United Kingdom and the United States. The organization has orchestrated multiple violent attacks throughout Ireland and Northern Ireland. The most notorious bombing throughout the Troubles, the Omagh bombing of 1998, was organized by the Real IRA. The incident caused 29 deaths in addition to hundreds of injuries. More recently, the Real IRA claimed responsibility for murdering 2 British Army soldiers outside of Masserine Barracks, County Antrim, in 2009. The Real IRA has a maximum estimated membership of 150 individuals and is stationed in both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. While it is well known that this radical Republican group has been infiltrated by MI5 and the Northern Ireland Police, the full scope of Real IRA operations is unclear. Chief Constable Sir Hugh Ord, who was in charge of the police service of Northern Ireland, has stated that the harsh reality is we never have and never have had a full intelligence picture of the Real IRA. The chances of the Real IRA retaliating to the installment of a hard border are also low. However, the Real IRA operates in both Ireland and Northern Ireland. This cross-border presence could increase the chances of violence. Additionally, the Real IRA, like the UVF, has become involved in the drug trade. This criminal activity has led to the recruitment of members who have committed petty crimes in the past. The uptake in criminal members could mean the real IRA has a greater chance of lashing out in opposition to the imposition of a hard border. Like the real Irish Republican Army, the Continuity Irish Republican Army is committed to forming a united Ireland. About 100 individuals are part of the CIRA, making it a slightly smaller group than the RIRA. The leadership for this organization is stationed in both Ulster and Munster. This radical IRA organization was responsible for a 1996 bombing at the Killyhelven Hotel that injured 17 people, and has organized a range of low-level bomb and gun incidents since. Recently, the Continuity IRA was behind the murder of David Byrne in 2016. The killing was a vengeful attack since David Byrne was involved in the gangland murder of real IRA member Alan Ryan in 2009. And while many of the current incidents of violence dealing with the Continuity IRA have a connection to criminal activity or revenge, it should be noted that this radical organization is also recruiting and training new members. Na Fianna Éireann is a group of roughly 30 Republican youth that support the Continuity IRA. These young men are taught the basics of guerrilla warfare and are included in commemorative Republican marches. The chances of the Continuity IRA restarting violence in reaction to the potential introduction of a hard border are small, although one should consider the long-term potential for conflict that accompanies training young people in the ways of armed republicanism. The bottom line is that despite activity of dissident groups, in the short term, the return of an enforced border likely would not destabilize peace in Northern Ireland. However, if the United Kingdom imposes custom checks along the border and restricts the free movement of people, groups within Northern Ireland may perceive the divide as a return to conditions characteristic of the Troubles. As one member of Na Fianna Éireann believes, as long as the British remain here, there will be more Bloody Sundays. Of course, the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland would much rather avoid a regression to violence. Maintaining an open border has been pivotal in preserving the peace process. Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, stated that the return of a hard border could cause real problems, and that an open border was part of the expression that the island of Ireland was together. Blair's words indicate that maintaining an open border is key to ensuring the hard-fought peace in Northern Ireland. On Thursday, December 7th, a deal between the UK and the EU was struck. The deal states, the United Kingdom confirms and accepts that the Common Travel Area and associated rights and privileges can continue to operate without affecting Ireland's obligations under Union law, in particular with respect to free movement for EU citizens. Specifically, the deal preserves the rights of 3 million EU citizens in the UK and those of 1 million UK citizens in the EU. According to the published joint report, in the absence of agreed solutions, the United Kingdom will maintain full alignment with rules of the internal market and the customs union that support North-South cooperation, the all-island economy, and the protection of the Good Friday Agreement. The people of Northern Ireland recently organised and issued a statement to the Taoiseach of Ireland, Leo Varadkar, urging him to somehow ensure that the rights of Northern Ireland citizens remain unperturbed as Brexit progresses. Rights include marriage equality, the funding of legacy inquests, and Irish language rights. The letter was signed by influential citizens of Northern Ireland, such as footballer James McLean, Gaelic Athletic Association player Peter Canavan, and filmmaker Terry George. The letter reads, Brexit pushes us all into uncharted territory, with huge uncertainty for businesses and the economy, and continuing doubts about what this will mean in reality for Irish and European citizens living in this region. The letter also notes how the impending reality of Brexit now threatens to reinforce partition on the island and revisit a sense of abandonment as experienced by our parents and grandparents. The preservation of an open border between the Republic of Ireland and the North should placate some worries residents of Northern Ireland might have. But as Brexit proceeds and the divisions between the United Kingdom and EU member Ireland become more pronounced, the economies of either country may be greatly impacted. Additionally, as just mentioned, many rights of the Northern Irish still are not guaranteed. The road ahead for the North is windy and unpredictable, but nonetheless traversable with the proper guidance.